thinking a few years ago, like, what do I have to offer people that's uniquely me? Like, what is uniquely me? Well, one thing I know is how to take a licking and keep on ticking.
Well, I would say that every decade has something dramatic in the world of hard knocks has tried to take me down. I developed an eating disorder pretty young,
Hmm.
became bulimic, went through a period of anorexia. I was one person at school. I was the cheerleader and the A student and wore a smile on my face, and a completely different person once I got home and was alone. I was a cutter. I used
Hmm.
to cut myself.
That's right. Yeah. Ricardo's rules of resilience. Tune in, people. Every episode is impactful. You become more burly just by listening. Let's go.
Welcome, everybody, to Ricardo's Rules of Resilience, the podcast that gives you the tools you need to withstand and recover from difficulties. We have a special guest today, and I'd like you to meet Stacy Wigg. She is an entrepreneur, a two-time master's degree holder, an IFBB pro bodybuilder, Hall of Fame athlete, and the kind of person who was running a gymnastics gym at age 16 while most of us were not. And you fast forward almost 40 years, Stacy, she is now the CEO and founder of not one, not two, but three thriving businesses. FitZone Personal Training and Wellness, which was launched in January of 2025, Virtual Vision, which is a virtual assistant agency, and the Buff Stuff Equipment line, with the most unique name of the three, I think. She's also, if you're watching the YouTube version of this, as you can see, she's also a DECA competitor. And her
Yes.
gym, yeah, look at that, DECA Fit. If you're listening to the audio, she's wearing her DECA Fit finisher t-shirt. Um, and she has hosted some events, including one very recently that I can't wait to talk about, and lots of energy, the kind of place you want to be when you compete. Even though she's just running one line of equipment, but I don't see, I'm spoiling it. We'll get to
See,
this
my
in a
next
second.
one, though, we already are setting up the Deca Mile and the Deca Strong going at the same time. So,
Woo! I've done a lot of things with DECA, but I've never tried that. I've tried them the same day, but not at the same time. That's pretty cool.
I like a good challenge.
You found one. Uh, but here's what really sets Stacy apart. 55. She's made it her mission to help middle-aged warriors rediscover the energy they had in their 30s. Through customized strategies designed specifically for this age group, she empowers people to fall in love with their bodies and their lives again, and to step outside their comfort zone to discover what they're truly capable of. Her lifelong commitment to transforming the health of thousands worldwide is evident in her impressive resume, but her passion, well, you're about to feel her passion for yourself, because for Coach Stacy, the biggest moment isn't her own accomplishments. Like every good coach, her biggest moments are witnessing and helping others experience theirs. Welcome to the podcast, Miss Stacy.
Well, thank you, Coach Ricardo. It is such an honor to be here with you, my fellow athlete, and somebody who I can really resonate with regard to, being having a life of hard knocks and just refusing to stay down, right?
Yeah.
Continuing to emerge.
Yes. I mean, that's really how I got on to the topic of resilience. It was thinking a few years ago, like, what do I have to offer people that's uniquely me? I mean, there's a lot of nutrition coaches. There's a lot of functional fitness coaches. There's even a handful of DECA good coaches. Like, what is uniquely me? Well, one thing I know is how to take a licking and keep on ticking, as that commercial used to say. So
That's right.
maybe I can help others in that same route. And your story Can we just start there? Can we just start with you as a person and what you have been able to withstand and recover from?
Well, I would say that every decade has something dramatic in the world of hard knocks has tried to take me down.
Yeah.
From and health ramifications, health issues, and severe injuries, surgeries. But I would start my story at age 13 because from the young, from birth to 13 is a pretty traditional story. I became a gymnast young and was on the trajectory to really make that my future.
Hmm.
And my dream was to become an Olympian. And then at age 13, three pretty traumatic things happened in my life. One, my grandfather committed suicide. My grandmother, who I called her Muma, she was a non biological role model in my life. She died of cancer 2 months after that. And then
Mm.
my parents decided to adopt a baby. And when they did, I had to quit gymnastics. So I lost
Oh.
my purpose. All I really had left after the two key people in my life passed away is my sport and my
Mm.
gymnastics coach. And when I fast forward to opening Fit Zone, is a part of that is like that's always as a child where I felt like I had community, where I felt purpose, where I belonged. I wanted to create that for others as adults because we tend
Hmm.
to lose that opportunity when we get older. But experiencing that trifecta of tragedy, like I call it, and not having any kind of support to get through that, I kind of went down a dark hole, and I developed an eating disorder pretty young,
Hmm.
became bulimic, went through a period of anorexia. Just I think it's all about control
Yeah.
and suicidal ideology. So I was one person at school. I was the cheerleader and the A student and
Mm.
wore a smile on my face, and a completely different person once I got home and was alone. I was a cutter. I used
Mm.
to cut myself just to release that pain that I was going through emotionally. So that set a 30-year course of having an eating disorder and dealing with that. 30 years.
Mm.
So
Wow.
then my father had said that I was smart, but I didn't have the discipline to make it through college. So I took that as a challenge. I moved out at 16. So when I was running that first gymnastics gym, and I was also the director of playgrounds in my small town, I'd go, you know, to a playground, give them what to do for the day, basically what I do now, and then ride my bike to the next one. So not much has changed.
Uh,
But while I was doing that, I was living on my own and going through puberty at 16, late in life, and trying to figure out how to live by myself and support myself. So I had two jobs, went to school, was trying to figure out how to pay for college, all that good stuff. And I didn't have a lot of confidence, but my best friend's father, I worked for his insurance company, and he said, Stacy, why don't you do this local pageant? And back then, it was, in the 80s, and the scholarship was 2,500, which was a lot of money back then. And I
boy,
and
it
I
was.
laughed at him because I said, "Well, I'm not pretty, and I don't know what to say in my speech, and I don't have the money for a gown, all of these things." And he said, "Well, you are pretty, and you are smart, and you are well spoken. All we need is a dress." And so I'll buy one for you. And I
Mm.
said, no, you're not going to buy me a dress. And he said, okay, since you're hard headed, I will teach you how to get sponsors. So we got sponsors in town, and I did that scholarship pageant. It was like my first experience speaking publicly, hearing like that. And I won the pageant. My best friend got runner up, and I won a scholarship of $2,500.
All
And
right.
although I was accepted to colleges that I really wanted to go to, I was having to pay for college myself. So I had to go not to a community college, but to one in state and somewhat nearby because I also didn't have a vehicle. And so I decided to go to Clarion University of Pennsylvania for my undergraduate. At the time, I just wanted to prove anybody wrong that doubted that I was going to make it. So first, I went to the Medical School of Georgia and got my physical therapy degree and became a physical therapist and did that for a couple of years. And that wasn't my thing. And then I went back to school and became a board certified behavior analyst. And that required another master's degree. And I did that for a couple years, and that wasn't my thing. All the while I was coaching gymnastics, became a personal trainer, was, taking on roles, managing gyms. And then I realized that all of those things were my things. I just needed to do them all.
Yeah.
Yes. So I needed to help people through their physical challenges. I needed to have a space where I could help people through their deepest, darkest times. And I needed to be able to get people in shape because that's when I felt best and I could conquer my demons, is when I was moving and had some sort of purpose and path.
Movement is medicine.
Yes, yes. So that took me up until my late 20s when I was teaching aerobics at a gym, and I had this big bodybuilder waddle on over to me and asked me if I had ever thought about competing in fitness. And back then, the bodybuilding world was not as it is now, where there are several different levels you can compete at. It was either you're a bodybuilder or you're a fitness athlete. And fitness athletes had to be dancers, gymnasts, martial artists. So it was a means for me to finally compete in gymnastics. And I was in charge of my destiny. So I got into bodybuilding just to compete in gymnastics as an adult, but then figured out that I had to pose in a bathing suit. Bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And that was not what I signed up for. And yet there I was competing in a bathing suit and finally doing gymnastics again. So, it catch 22. And I won my first competition, and the rest is history. 3 years later, I was top 2 in the nation and practicing my fitness routine, and came down out of a double twisting full, where you go up in the air, you spin a couple times, and you're supposed to come down on your feet. I was carb depleted. And one reason you shouldn't deplete carbs when you're doing high intensity athletics, you actually need your brain to accomplish these things. I turned the wrong way. And instead of, if you do that, you're supposed to just keep going the wrong way. I tried to autocorrect and came down on my head and broke my cervical spine in several places. Yes.
Goodness gracious. Traumatic.
So that was my first traumatic injury. My doctor was amazing. When they took me in, I was pretty stoic. I had Russian coaches as a child and pretty tough parents. So there wasn't a lot of emotion or emotional intelligence at the time. It was just do.
Yeah.
And my only concern was that I'm going to be competing at nationals in a month. And that's when I cried. And my doctor says, you didn't cry when I told you broke your neck. You cried when I told you couldn't compete in a month.
Wow.
But I got my pro card in bodybuilding 1 year later because no one expected me to come back from that. So I had a halo slept like a corpse for many months. And the very first thing I did when I got that halo off is I started doing gymnastics and
Mm.
getting back in shape. And I didn't really get out of shape because I always did whatever I could do. There's always something you can do. If you break your foot, well, you've got a bunch of other body parts that you can use, you know.
That's
As
right.
you know, I mean, you have with a spine like yours, and to be
Yeah.
able to do the athletic movements that you do, that's grit. But you have to be in that space
Yeah.
if you're gonna
Or I'm
endure.
not going to let this stop me. This is,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
it might limit my life, but it's not going to control my destiny.
Right. So when I got my pro status, everybody thinks, ah, there
Hmm.
you rise. It's going to be a beautiful journey from there out. You're going to have this fantastic experience of being a
Yeah.
pro athlete, and it just is tough. You're suddenly in a sport where there's money involved,
Yeah.
and nobody's nice anymore. No one wants to be your
Mm.
friend. You also have no one to train with because you're at the top. It's very lonely up there.
Hmm.
But I was going after it. I didn't care. And about a year in, I started having numbness and from my knees down. Almost like it felt like not like shin splints. I've had shin splints like no other. And I kept telling my physicians, luckily I had a physician, sports medicine guy who worked with Junior Olympic um, gymnasts. So he was privy to all the things that can occur with our specific bodies and our beatings. And I told him, I feel like I have a boa constrictor wrapped around my legs. And so he watched me walk, and I was starting to get drop foot to where I couldn't even pick up my foot anymore, and I didn't know what was going on. Well, I had compartment syndrome of the lower limbs. And for those of you out there who, what the hell is compartment syndrome? Compartment syndrome is compression of the fascial compartments of your limbs. And from the knee down, we have four of these small, narrow compartments. From the knee up, we have two big ones. So we don't get compartment syndrome from the knee up typically, but from the knee down, if your muscle grows quickly, and you have a lot of inflammation, it can shut off the nerve supply to
Hmm.
your lower legs. And you can
Hmm.
actually end up having to be amputated from the knee down.
Goodness gracious.
So I had to have surgery on both my legs.
Mm. And this is how many years removed from the wheelchair after breaking your neck?
Well, I wasn't in the wheelchair for breaking my neck. I just had a halo.
Oh, you never had the wheelchair.
No,
Oh,
I used
okay.
to stuff the halo with towels and work out.
Amazing. Amazing.
I walked into my friend's aerobic class like that one day, and she's like, "Oh no, get out, Stacy! Like, you cannot take this class like that."
I'm not doing that.
I was like, "I take responsibility for all things. I'll be liable to myself." She's like, "No,
Yeah.
no."
No,
But
not gonna happen.
when I had surgery on both my legs, then obviously I had no ability to be mobile.
Hmm.
So I fortunately lived in an area where there were, I don't have a lot of family support. So I lived in an area where there are a lot of older men and women who had been either in wheelchairs or walkers, and they were there to help me through that whole process.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
But you don't realize until you're limited like that what life is like for someone
Hmm.
who's handicapped, and you never
Yes.
forget it. And so I have just a different appreciation for those who, and for whatever reason, in our armed forces or beyond, have a life of being in a wheelchair or losing their limbs. So
Yes.
I was very fortunate. I recovered from that in a 2-year period and started competing again in bodybuilding.
Amazing. Wow. Mm. What a story, Stacy. They can't keep you down.
No, I really did get bodybuilding as a pro, there's just a lot of drug use involved. That's no secret for most people, but it wasn't the path that I wanted to take. I was in it for a different reason. And so I found a new sport at the time called Tri Fitness. And Tri Fitness was just up my alley because it was a gymnastics fitness routine and they actually put down mats. They cared about their athletes. It was a bodybuilding competition, bench press, shuttle run, box jumps, and 2 obstacle courses all in one weekend.
Wow.
Yes.
Now that's a weekend.
Yes. And that is called Tri Fitness World Challenge. And I got into that just mistakenly out of the blue. I had a coach for Tri Fitness who wanted her women to work with me on their stage presence because I was a bodybuilding stage presence coach. So I worked with these ladies and I was more and more intrigued by what this sport was because it was a little bit of everything. I thought it was the coolest thing. And you could kind of pick and choose which events you wanted to do. Of course, I wanted to do them all. But I didn't tell them this was their thing. So, and then their coach ended up, something happened. Her name is Mocha Lee. Something happened and she couldn't go with her ladies. And she asked me to go. So I went to the competition with them. And 2 weeks out, I decided I would compete with them for camaraderie. I'd just try it out. We had the best time. And I ended up walking away with a bunch of awards and medals, and the rest was history. I spent 10 years competing in the Tri Fitness World Challenge and earned my Hall of Fame status 2 years ago.
2 years, all right.
Yeah, did my last gymnastics competition at age 52, so 3 years ago.
Wow, that is impressive.
My body did not think so. My body was telling me no every step of the way.
Yeah, right. We do have to have that mental resilience and that mental toughness.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we do have to know when it's time to listen and say, okay, yeah. And you reached that point and wisely listened, right?
Yes.
It's time.
Yes. Never too late.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. As long as we're drawing breath, our story's not over.
You're like me in many ways, that you just are so driven, and sometimes it's hard to navigate that line. And like I said, I had an eating disorder for 30 years that I just couldn't. I just felt like I was living a double life because I was preaching this health and I couldn't kill it. I couldn't get a grip on it. I had done a million programs. I had been in psychiatric hospitals. I had done it all. And then I was going through my divorce because my emotional intelligence as someone with an eating disorder was that of a 5-year-old. And,
Wow.
Enduring that, and ended up finding out that I had thyroid cancer that had metastasized to my lymph nodes, and I had stage 4A thyroid and lymphatic cancer.
Whew. And we got to hear this story too. Talk us through this journey of resilience.
Honestly, it's the best thing that ever happened to me. By far.
Wow.
Yes, it was such a slap in the face. And just all of a sudden you realize that you're doing all of these things to try to prove what? Like, if you don't have your life, if you don't have your health, then you actually have absolutely nothing. So the degrees don't matter. The accolades don't matter. What truly matters is the impact you have, the relationships you've built. And I also always wanted to travel, and I hadn't done that because I was so busy working and for the next thing. What's the next thing? I was never present.
Yeah.
And so I went through the whole process of, recovering from cancer.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say that I slowed down a lot, but more than I ever had. And I had a completely different mindset when it was all said and done. I traveled by myself for a couple of months through Europe. I went to Thailand and did some videography in Thailand. I joined a mastermind where travel was all part of the game. We were required to travel to just prove to ourselves that we could build our businesses wherever we were. And throughout that process, I realized for the very first time that I enjoyed spending time with myself.
For the first time.
For the first time, and I was in my 40s.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you think you go 4 decades and realize that you've never really liked yourself.